Aloha, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Alden, and this is my husband, Jamie, and we are the co-founders of Nrf2 Warrior. We are so excited to share with you today our special guest. And first, I want to tell you a little bit about Nrf2 Warrior. We were inspired to start this movement because of our own experience in athletics in the military community. About 2 decades ago, Jamie and I were both Division I athletes at the United States Military Academy at West Point in New York. We also have 2 kids. Our boys are both athletes. And Jamie and I served in the Army. I was an airborne paratrooper, and Jamie had a career as an Army Green Beret in the Special Forces. So if you're familiar with Special Operations Forces, they are really like the elite athletes of the military. So we come to the Nrf2 Warrior program with just a big passion for this. Our products, we offer these very unique products that are truly in a category of themselves. These are all natural cellular activators with solid peer-reviewed research regarding how they support health as well as human performance. So we founded Nrf2 Warrior to support professional athletes and warriors, our first responders, people whose profession require optimal fitness and well-being, as well as aging athletes like ourselves who just want to keep a competitive edge. We are super excited today to be interviewing Martin Day. Martin the Spartan Day is a UFC fighter, and we first met Martin at the martial arts company where our kids were going through their martial arts program. So Martin is a very special person to us, and he truly embodies what it means to be an Nrf2 warrior. Just a little bit about him. Like I said, he is a UFC fighter. He's a bantamweight in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. He's a former URCC world champion, and he has black belt in Taekwondo, 4th degree black belt. And you're going to learn a little bit more about him. He's truly a remarkable individual. Again, we met him when he was our oldest son's martial arts instructor at the martial arts company. We first met him in an outreach program at Kainalu Elementary. And so my son was about probably 5 or 6 years old when he first became a student of Martin's. And I can tell you he's now 17 years old, and it is no understatement to say that Martin Day has been one of his greatest influences, one of his greatest mentors, and has really helped to make him the young man that he is today. So we are very grateful for Martin. Martin, we love you, and we are just honored to be interviewing you today. Thank you for your time. Before we get rolling with this interview, we want to watch a few highlights from Martin the Spartan Day, coming to you from Exclusive MMA. Here we go.
Rip the body like a pro boxer. Look at that combo.
Looking for the guillotine choke here. Looks like he's got it pretty deep. And he taps out Anthony. They're looking to fire off at any second here.
Martin's having success with his punches. I don't know why.
Brady Hall needs a body shot. This fight could be over, and that's it.
His own takedown. Gets it. The kind of combos that get me excited about this.
Ran in the red, Jay in the black. There are those kicks. Down.
Oh,
10 seconds.
Good job.
Welcome, Martin. Thank you for being
Martin,
here.
thank you for coming. Thank you for
guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, we just love it. We just love it. Every engagement we have with you is just it really sets our day, and it just really gives us motivation and allows us to just really go through our day with a greater energy. So I just thanks for connecting with us today. But you've been an elite athlete and a professional fighter for some time now. And I'd just like you to tell us a little bit about that journey, the journey you've been on that's put you to this spot right here, being a fighter in the UFC.
So I started training in Taekwondo in 2002, so quite a while ago. And I started competing shortly after I started training. I was competing in Taekwondo tournaments and boxing tournaments. I'm actually a multiple-time state Taekwondo champion as well. And also amateur kickboxing champion for the state of Hawaii. Anyways, I have also been boxing since I was about since probably like 2003. And yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Taekwondo is like a lot of aerial kicks and jumping kicks and spinning kicks, things like that. And then so along with the boxing, I started doing kickboxing. I racked up a whole bunch of amateur kickboxing fights and even a few. I'm actually undefeated as an amateur kickboxer and as a professional kickboxer. I think my knockout rate is like 97% or something. I only have one or two kickboxing fights that have gone to decision. And yeah, so then I started training in mixed martial arts, MMA. I turned professional in 2015 as a professional mixed martial artist. And the UFC picked me up in 2018. So I was, I think you mentioned earlier that I'm a URCC world champion. That's a pretty big organization based out of the Philippines. And so right before I got signed to the UFC, I picked up their world title. And going into that fight was, I was a heavy underdog against their undefeated champion. I was pretty much getting fed to the wolves on that one. This guy was 8-0 with 8 finishes, and 7 of those finishes coming in the first round. So I was definitely not the favorite in that one, but I ended up finishing my opponent in the second round and getting the world title. And then the UFC picked me up shortly after that. So that was a good win to get in on. So now I'm signed in a multi-fight deal with the UFC. Right now we're kind of in a standstill with this whole COVID-19 thing going on, but I'll be back in there soon.
Yeah, I know we're all pretty bummed that the fight on the 28th of March was canceled, and it was going to be the first UFC fight of this year on ESPN. And
yeah,
we were really stoked about you and what you were doing for the training camp. So can you explain to us how this training camp was different than the ones you've had in the past, and what would you kind of credit that to?
Yeah, so the main difference, the only difference really that I did in this camp was my the supplement I've been taking from you guys, the Nrf2 Warrior. So I started taking that supplement right at the beginning of the camp. And for those of you guys that don't know, fighters cut a lot of weight or diet. I should say diet and cut. So I walk around. I started this camp at about 165 pounds, 64, 65, around there. And I fight in the bantamweight division, as you mentioned earlier, which is 135 pounds. And as you can see, I'm pretty lean already. So anyway, it's a lot of dieting to do. And dieting people don't realize is the hardest part of this whole fighting thing, because the rest is enjoyable. Even though you're putting in the hard work in the gym and the weights and all this, the hard work, it's at the end of the day, it's fun because that's why we got into it, right? But the dieting is what really sucks. That's what people don't want to do. So especially when you're already skinny like me and you gotta cut 30 pounds of weight. So usually the diet is tough. Anyway, so that's been one of the easiest parts, because not only is the weight, you have to worry about the weight coming off, it's also like your energy is lower because you're not eating the kind of food that you need you're exerting so much energy, you're exerting so much during these super hard training sessions and sparring sessions. And sometimes you're just dead because your body's not getting all the food that it really needs. But during this camp, I didn't have either of those problems. The weight and the energy level was just a breeze. So I found that my weight was coming down to my fight weight is about 154, 53 pounds. So that's where I try to keep myself during the hard parts of camp. And with this supplement, with the Nrf2 Warrior, my weight was just shot directly down, and I actually had to eat more calories, because it was new to me, so I didn't know, like, okay, I gotta still diet. I'm still doing my dieting, the hardcore dieting. I'm just gonna add the supplement, see how it works, see, whatever. But I saw that after the first week of taking it, maybe about a week and a half, I started to really see the difference. Is my weight just came down real fast, and then I actually had to eat more, like I said, to bring myself back up to 153, 154, because that's my performance weight. So I make weight at 135, put all the water weight back on, and I get in the cage at about 153. So during this whole camp, which was a whole camp because the fight only got canceled a couple weeks ago, during the whole camp, I was just constantly being able to eat almost whatever I wanted. Of course, I was eating healthy and clean. I'm not going out and eating McDonald's. Eating clean, but I was able to eat like good pasta. I was able to eat rice. I was able to like do these things and eat like really how you should be eating when you're exerting the kind of energy and you're exerting what we go through as athletes, So that was just a huge plus. Wasn't having, my diet was not an issue at all. Just able to eat 3 meals a day, and that was just a blessing right there. Because man, like not being able to get in the calories and the carbs you need is tough. And like I said about the energy thing, it caused me to have higher energy too. But the thing is, even in the week when I was dieting really hard and still taking the supplement, my energy was still high. My energy was higher throughout this camp than it's ever been. I've been able to push my sparring rounds. Just my heart rate was pushing incredibly high, higher than I've had. So record highs, and I was able to bring my heart rate down between rounds incredibly fast, right back down to resting heart rate real fast. So I'm ready for the next round again. So my recovery in between rounds and during training sessions was just through the roof. I've never witnessed something like that. And that's when I talked to you, Jamie, and I was like, man, this stuff is good stuff. I was like kind of just taking it at first, like, yeah, I love you guys. I'm gonna take it, just see what this stuff's all about. But now I'm a huge, big time believer in it, and I'm gonna use this stuff every camp, along with the weight and the energy and the recovery during sparring and in between rounds. My recovery from soreness and just bumps and bruises in general was, I would say, at least about half of the time, cut in half. For example, after a really hard leg day, we do strength and conditioning, and I'm pretty sure my coach is trying to kill me sometimes within the rule set. Anyway, so a legness, like a really sore leg day that would probably last maybe like 4 or 5 days of just can't walk straight, that would probably be cut in half to about 2 days. So the recovery from sore muscles and bumps and bruises was just incredibly fast, like way faster than anything. And obviously I'm older in this fight than I ever was in my past fights. So you think my recovery wouldn't be faster, you think it'd be slowing down, I'm 31 years old. So that's not the case at all. I actually feel like I have more energy and recover faster than I ever have. And it's not that I feel that way. I mean, my numbers with my heart rate and my recovery, the numbers don't lie. And all the things, all my stats are all tracked during camp. So I tracked my calories I was able to burn on the Airdyne bike, and my recovery time during rounds. And it's just, there's no way I'm going to go through another camp not using this. And another thing I was really sketched out about when I first started taking this stuff, I was like, I don't know, Jamie. I don't know, man.
The testing, right?
Yeah, I get really strict testing. These guys knock at my door at 6 a.m. They wait for me outside the gym. For those of you that don't know, the UFC is tested under USADA, which are the same drug testing and doping testing that they go through in the Olympics. So it's the strictest testing pool in all sports. These guys can literally show up whenever they want. You got to have a schedule. They got to know where you are every day and all parts of the day, basically. But yeah, so I was like, man, I don't know if I can take this stuff. I don't know if this is cleared by USADA. And I've been tested twice since I've been taking it, and I'm good to go, man. I'm all clear. It's actually NSF's approved, and it's on the BSCG website as well, which are two of the main sources for the testing. So once they're on there, you're pretty much good to go. But yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about it. And then I tried to stop taking it for a little while.
Yeah, how did that go?
I didn't like it. Also, yeah, I could tell my energy was down. My weight was coming up a little bit. And also during this time, with all this, the COVID stuff, I want to keep myself as healthy as possible. Maybe I'll try to get off of it again and see how I feel. I got off of it for a week. I could feel the difference in my energy level. But maybe I'll try that in the future. But for now, I don't want to get off of it just because I feel so good. So yeah, guys, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all I can think of right now. Maybe you guys have more questions for me that'll provoke more thoughts. But yeah, the stuff is good stuff, man.
Hey, Martin, can you share with them what you told us as far as your the sparring and the recovery about your sparring partner, and how many days it usually takes you to recover and then get your focus and concentration back, and how quickly on these products you were able to turn that around and cut that time down?
Yeah, so my main sparring partner for this camp, as well as a few other camps I've had, is Max Holloway. A lot of you guys know him. He was the reigning featherweight champion of the world in the UFC, and he'll be a two-time champion when he gets that title back pretty soon. But
That's
so
right.
he's been helping me out, and having sparring with an athlete and a fighter of that level. I mean, he's literally one of the best fighters on planet Earth. So having somebody like that sparring you every day is tough on the body, and it's tough on your mind, and the rounds are just hard. Like each round is like a fight. So to hang with somebody on that level and to be able to recover between rounds is key. And so usually when my heart rate gets up to like a sparring like high intensity sparring, usually I'll take about maybe 40, for me at least, about 40-45 seconds to recover fully, so I'm back in the next round, back down to a resting heart rate. When I was on the Nrf2 Warrior, between rounds, I was recovering in something more like under 30 seconds. I think it was like 26 seconds or something like that. I was like, my heart rate was back down again, and I was like able to take the rest of that time. And the key thing about that, guys, is like when your heart rate is high and you're really not in good shape and you're trying to recover between rounds, that's a key moment, because you got to go on to the next round as fresh as possible, and you got to be able to listen to your corner's instructions. It's hard to be able to listen to your corner instructions while you're like huffing and puffing, trying to get your air back in. And so the recovery was key. And I was able to just push so much harder than usual. I was able to finish these 5-minute rounds just like how I started them. Like I felt so good in there on that stuff, you know. That's why I say I'm not gonna not go through another camp. I'm always gonna take this stuff.
Martin, thank you so much for sharing all that with the team here. And we're just thrilled to be able to help and provide these products to you to just give you that 10%, 20% more competitive edge. But before we leave today, Susan has one last question to ask you. And so I'll pass it over to Susan, because this is just, this really talks about who you are as a man and what kind of human being you are. So, Susan. Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to, close it up with kind of how we started. Like Martin, you obviously have this warrior spirit that goes beyond your training, these products and all that. And your story of growing up is just, it's unique. It's unique in that you grew up in a big family. You grew up in a different situation than most folks have grown up. And I know that it's been incredibly inspiring to my boys. And I remember the first time they met you at Kainalu and then walked into the martial arts company, and they have remained your biggest fans their entire lives. And so, and I know that it's from these deep roots that you have. Would you mind just sharing a little bit of your story? Because it's so powerful.
No, I don't mind at all. So I, like you said, came from a really big family. I'm number 7 out of 9 kids. My parents were missionaries in the Philippines. Well, my dad was a missionary, went to the Philippines, met my mom, and she became a missionary as well. The top half of the kids, or most of the top half, I think the first 5 of them were born in the Philippines. My dad is from here, from Kailua, Hawaii. He actually graduated from Kailua High School. Anyway, I was born in Japan. On the way back from the Philippines, my parents stopped in Japan for some missionary work, and that's where I happened. And then we moved back to the Big Island. During this whole time, especially with 9 kids and coming back to Hawaii, where it's not cheap over here, we didn't have a lot of money. So when we moved back, we first moved back to Oahu here. When we moved back to Oahu, we were living on the west side. We were living actually mostly in Keao Beach Park. We had a little tent set up. We had a van, a generator, stuff like that. So we lived there for a little bit, and that's when I was the youngest in the family. And then we moved to Kauai to caretake my dad's friend. Well, just a guy my dad met. My dad he does a lot of things based off of faith, and so he met this guy, and we just moved to Kauai. We had a little, not even really a 1-bedroom. It was more like just like a shack. Really, just the whole thing was a bedroom. And so most of us kind of still slept outside. We lived there till I was only about 2 years old, so we didn't live there long. And then I grew up. Most of my childhood was spent in the Big Island. So when we went to the Big Island, we were able to get a little piece of property, but we didn't have enough to have like a house and everything on it. So we were still living in tents. We lived in a super rural part of the Big Island in Puna, Fern Acres to be exact. So we didn't have any running water, electricity, and all the nice things that go along with those, right? So we were living in tents still, and that's where my younger brother and my younger sister were born. So now I was number 7 out of 9. And so I just know what it's like to not have a lot of the luxuries, like you you kind of get used to having like hot water and like throw your clothes in the washing machine. All of that stuff was all like manual labor for us. Towards the end of our stay in the Big Island, we actually were able to finally build a house. My dad and my older brothers actually built the house by hand. And but it was only a 2-bedroom house. So my parents had a bedroom and the girls had a bedroom. My family has 4 girls, 5 boys. So the girls got to sleep in the house still, but so the boys were still intense. So yeah, we had a house though. So the house was cool. Still no electricity and running water, but we did have a water catchment. I remember at that time, my grandma was starting to get sick and she was getting old, my grandma on my dad's side. And she owned a house here, the house that my dad grew up in Kailua, Kaneohe Bay Drive. And yeah, so we came to visit once or twice. And I remember it being super cool just to have things like electricity. And one of the big ones was popcorn. Popcorn was like amazing to me because you just throw it in the microwave and it was done in like 2 minutes. And toast. So I remember one of the first times I had popcorn and toast. Yeah, and there's not a lot of elevators and escalators in the Big Island either. There is now, but not at that time. I remember the first time I got into an escalator, I almost like fell because we were going down in the airport, the Honolulu airport, and decline that real quick.
Whoops. Oh, there you go.
You cut out.
You cut out.
Cut out the escalator. The escalator. You were getting on the escalator.
Yeah. So I was getting on the escalator and I almost fell because I didn't know how to use one. I was stepping in between the steps separate. Anyway, just so stuff like that, the toast was cool, popcorn was cool, and eventually my mom's, my dad's mom, my grandmother, she passed away, and we inherited the house here. So we ended up selling our property in the Big Island and moving here, and then we were all finally able to live in a house together because the house had 2 bedrooms. No, 3 bedrooms. And yeah, so I forgot to mention that during this whole process, all of my family was homeschooled. So my mom actually homeschooled all 9 of us. By the time we moved to Oahu, I was actually the first person in the family who ended up going and graduating from an actual school. I went from 10th grade to graduation. My mom actually had breast cancer, so she sent me and the 2 younger ones to me and number 8 and number 9 to school. So yeah, she's a survivor. She's all good now. But so I ended up graduating from Kalaheo High School along with my younger brother and younger sister. And yeah, then during sometime that point, I think we moved here in 2001, and I started training here in 2002. And that's actually a whole nother story because we still didn't have money to pay for tuition. So when I first started training, Master Bashaw, the master instructor here, he let me come in and mop, and I was like the janitor of martial arts company, which was then called Bashaw's Academy of Taekwondo. But so I was like 13 years old, and I would come and the mirrors, the floor, whatever needed to be cleaned. So I would clean to pay for my tuition. And then I eventually became an instructor, so I didn't have to pay tuition anymore. So yeah, but now this is what I do. I teach Taekwondo, as you guys mentioned earlier, with your 2 sons. And so, yeah, that's actually my kind of my day job. Something I don't really need to do now that I'm a professional athlete in the UFC, but I choose to do it because I want to have my own martial arts school one day and my own Taekwondo academy. And I also just love to pass on the art of Taekwondo and to be able to teach the kids in my community that I grew up in. So I still choose to stick around and do that. And I'll continue to do that. Just it's what I love to do. So yeah, that's a little background for that.
Oh, thank you, Martin. Well, I tell you what, I mean, there's nothing left to say after that. You can, hopefully everybody can see why we love you so much. And we're just thankful. We're so thankful for you and the impact you've had not only on our kids, but hundreds, probably thousands of kids that have, come through the school system here and attended your outreach classes or walked in those doors at MAC Martial Arts Company in Kailua and have been impacted by you. And your legacy goes far beyond the UFC. So we are so grateful for you. And I've been sitting here thinking, I'm like, who we need to interview next is your mom and dad, because they might be the real.
Yeah. They can talk.
They could give us some real coaching on this homeschool business that we're all thrust into now.
They're the OG Nrf2 warriors, the OG warriors there. Thank you so much. You guys, you're awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, my mom's a homeschool master. Yeah, she's got some experience under her belt.
I'm gonna stop worrying about just getting two kids homeschooled. Now I'm gonna think about your mom every time we think it's up. So, well, thank you. We appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call. And we just, like I said, we're honored to be doing this through Nrf2 Warrior with you. We love you, and stay healthy, stay safe. I know that whether you have a fight, who knows how long this is going to last, but you're a martial artist through and through, whether there's a fight ahead of you or not.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. I love you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Love you, Martin. Thank you.
Aloha, Martin. Thank you for the
All right, guys. All right. Have a good rest of your day.